Hello and welcome to Access Asia. Thanks for joining us. Coming up in this edition, India is turning to solar power in an effort to curb greenhouse gases. But the country still has a long way to go to meet its goal of reaching net zero carbon emissions by 2070. Japan has become the first country in the world to sell gene-edited food. There are claims of increased health benefits, but skeptics say more testing needs to be done. And we're saying hello to Chinawood. The Chinese entertainment industry has surpassed Hollywood in annual revenue, but faces challenges exporting its entertainment to the rest of the world. Well, we begin in China for a different reason. The country ended 2021 with its biggest one-week number of coronavirus cases in 2 years, and the Chinese government has countered with one of the strictest responses in the world. In fact, total lockdowns have returned to China, with millions of people forced to stay home. But there's been a backlash with reports of food shortages and harsh penalties for those breaking the rules. Olivia Salazar-Winspear and Charles Pellegrin have the story.
Public humiliation for those who jeopardize the country's zero-COVID policy. 4 men in hazmat suits, handcuffed and tightly guarded, accused of illegally bringing foreigners into China's borders, which have been virtually closed since March 2020. Local police hung placards around their necks with their name and picture and paraded them through the town. State media criticized these scenes, saying the practice has been banned since the 1980s. But the pandemic has made draconian measures commonplace in China. Xi'an's 13 million residents have been under strict lockdown since December 22nd, with food delivered to each household every 3 days. Not enough for some, who then turned to social media. Local authorities admit food delivery has been affected by the restrictions, and the priority has been given to mass testing. 160,000 people mobilized and a huge new testing center has been built.
2组可以达到25万挂。按照10比1的混检的模式的话，我们每天的筛查人员可以达到。
Further south in the tourist hotspot of Jinghong, many travellers have been stranded after authorities enforced a snap lockdown, including on those who travelled to this border town for the holidays, which is popular for its night markets. Confusion surrounding access to local testing facilities meant many have been unable to leave more than a week after arriving, prompting tensions in the city. Overall, China's health authority reported 161 people testing positive on January 2nd, down from 191 the previous day. Indeed, many of these new cases were in Xi'an. But when it comes to tackling the virus, it's the same philosophy nationwide. In China, the end justifies the means.
At the recent COP26 climate conference, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi surprised the world when he announced a goal of reaching net zero carbon emissions by 2070. The nation has a long way to reach that target, still heavily dependent on coal. But it's looking to solar power to help turn things around. Delano D'Souza has the story.
It's an ocean of blue as far as the eye can see. In the middle of this desert in northern India, 7 million solar panels. It's an area which is about half the size of Paris. This is the largest solar farm in the world in terms of capacity. It alone can power some 2 million homes.
Because India is close to the northern tropic, we have an enormous amount of sunlight. It's free, and there are no carbon emissions. It's important for India, and that's why we're developing this energy.
The private sector also getting on board. In New Delhi, more and more solar panels are appearing on high-rise buildings. Installers are having trouble keeping up with the demand.
Seen at least a jump of 120% month on month in the demand, because initially we were installing only 3 sites per month. Now we're doing almost 15 to 20 installations every month.
Solar energy is also cheaper than coal. This building's owner says he's going to save 800 euros per month on his power bill.
I'll be using from the government, it was near about 7 to 8 rupees per unit. Now, it will cost me near about 1.5 rupees.
Currently, about 70% of India's solar panels are made in China. But India is trying to change that, ramping up production and hoping to become one of the biggest suppliers in the world. In this factory, they make 4,500 panels per day. The manager is working to double production.
We already do in some markets. We compete with the Chinese and the others.
Despite those ambitions, India still has a long way to reach its target of net zero carbon emissions by 2070. Currently, coal supplies 2/3 of the country's energy.
Now to Japan, which has become the first country in the world to sell gene-edited food. Researchers say it has more health benefits and that the process will revolutionize the quality and production of plants and animals. But critics say more testing needs to be done to make sure the food is safe to eat. France 24 met a professor who has produced the first gene-hacked tomato.
Here in the grounds of Tsukuba University near Tokyo, Professor Hiroshi Ezuro is growing a new type of tomato.
From here to there are tomatoes with high levels of GABA. And these ones here are normal tomatoes that we're using for experiments. And as you can see, they look exactly the same.
GABA, or gamma-aminobutyric acid, occurs naturally in fruit and is said to be good for high blood pressure and sleeplessness. Unlike genetically modified foods, these tomatoes do not contain outside genetic material. Instead, they've been made using a genome editing technique. Using molecular scissors, Japanese scientists removed a strand of DNA containing GABA and reintroduced it in another part of the same tomato, a process that increases the overall quantity of the acid. These tomatoes, the first of their kind, went on sale online in September for 20 euros a kilo. That's twice the price of ordinary tomatoes. Japanese authorities clearly distinguish between genome-edited and GMO products. But producers of the former are not required to state that their food is genome-edited on the packaging. This has led to mistrust among some consumers. All of the food on sale at this market is organic and grown locally. Here, no one seems to be interested in eating genome-edited tomatoes.
We shouldn't trust politicians or scientists when they say these foods are safe. Some people believe eating them may lead to developing new allergies. I'm not convinced when we're told that they're safe.
A recent survey of 40,000 Japanese people found that almost half would not eat genome-edited produce.
I buy groceries without thinking, and it scares me to hear that products I don't want to consume are going to be sold in supermarkets. We don't know the risks, and we don't know when they will reach the supermarkets.
Scientists here are now working on new projects that will make use of the versatility of genome editing technology. It's possible to imagine tomatoes that are more resistant to the heat and the cold, more or less acidic, sweeter, or richer in vitamins.
The risk is the same as in the case of natural crossbreeding occurring in normal tomatoes. And when you eat these, do you have health problems? Well, it's the same thing.
These tomatoes will soon appear on supermarket shelves in Japan and could even be exported. The sale of GMOs for human consumption is banned in the EU, but the European Commission is now reconsidering rules on genome editing.
Well, you've heard of Hollywood, but how about Chinawood? You may not know it, but China's movie market has surpassed Hollywood in annual revenue. But as you're about to see, China still faces the challenge of exporting its entertainment to the rest of the world.
Off the coast of the Yellow Sea, this is China Wood, the capital of entertainment in the world's most populous country. With sprawling movie sets, it boasts the largest outdoor film studio in the world. Hundreds of productions are filmed here each year. In this studio, they're shooting an internet reality show on basketball called Dunk of China, watched by 10 million people per episode.
We're making a series about sports, so we need a big studio, so this is ideal. For filming, there's no better place, and it's less expensive than other places too.
China Wood is also attracting foreign filmmakers, even from the United States. The Great Wall, starring Matt Damon, was shot here, along with the film Pacific Rim Uprising, showing that even Hollywood is tempted by lower production costs in these huge studios that took the equivalent of over 6 billion euros to build.
This is our largest studio. It's 10,000 square meters, 160 meters long, 60 meters wide, and 22 meters high. Everything here was constructed to accommodate the needs of international productions. We also facilitate visas for filmmakers. We have 4 5-star hotels, a commercial center, a school, and a hospital.
Since the start of the pandemic, there have been no foreign productions in China Wood, but everyone has been busy with domestic demand. Jenny Lee is a special effects coordinator currently working on a zombie film with some of China Wood's biggest stars.
All of these facial expressions are controlled by remote control.
China Wood may have taken over as the world leader in annual revenue, but the vast majority of its films do not find international success. 84% of that revenue comes from domestic sales.
And that does it for this edition of Access Asia. Thanks for being with us, and stay tuned for more world news here on France 24.